Welcome to the Pod Strangely Warm podcast, a United Methodist conversation brought to you by the Central Texas Conference of the United Methodist Church. I am Daniel Hawkins, pastor at Martin UMC and host for this conversation. As we begin this new series of conversations, we will be wrestling with how are we good ancestors for those who follow us? What church will we be handing to the next generation? And as we get started in this series of conversations, we are incredibly excited to be joined by the man who is pushing us in this direction, the man, the myth, the legend, the man who goes fast or faster, and frankly, the man who is most importantly, Maya Saenz arm candy.
That's right.
Bishop Ruben Saenz. We are incredibly thankful that you are here with us today on Pod Strangely Warmed. You have shared with us this moment in your life that seems incredibly foundational, where you held your first grandchild for the first time. And amid that flood of emotions and spirit, you were wrestling with the question, what church will I give to this child?
That's right.
I'd wonder, we're going to get to what that church looks like over the next 30 minutes or so, right. But I'd love to hear who has maybe been those folks who metaphorically or literally held you in their hands and wondered what church will they give to you and help you become the leader, the pastor, and the follower of Jesus you are today.
Daniel, thanks for doing this.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm looking forward to the conversation. But in my office, I have an old black and white picture. And it's of my mom, probably in the 60s, because I don't know what age I am, but I'm really young.
Okay. And
it's me and five other children around a table doing a Sunday school lesson. And I have that picture there because when I think about who formed me in the faith, right, I had the example of my parents. But I also had the teachings of the church through Sunday school and vacation Bible school and things like that. So I have that picture of my mom and my brother and Aaron Montemayor and Omar Peña and others studying the Cokesbury curriculum.
Oh, yeah.
And, those stories over the years have become principles that I draw from and that have shaped my life, my leadership, my outlook, my relationships with other people. So they were foundational at that age. And of course, when I talk about the practical, Paul said, follow me, right? Look at me. Look at how I live my life. And so I was very blessed in that both of my parents were people of faith. Remember one time when I was probably in my early teens, my dad got my brother and I together, and he said, "Okay, we're going to talk about our budget." Okay, so let's talk about the budget.
Yeah.
And I was waiting to hear how much was going to be left for our allowance.
Yeah.
So he took out the checkbook and he said, your mom and I make X amount of a month. And from here we start paying our bills. And so he had a stack of bills. Mortgages and all that kind of stuff. But the first check goes to the church. So he sat down, he wrote the tithe to the church. He said, this goes to the church. Now we pay our bills. Now we do our savings, and now this is what we have left.
Yeah.
And so I was remembering at age 13 that was a significant moment for me in discipleship and how we are stewards of all things. So when I draw upon those memories, it helps me recognize that they were pouring into me, and now I'm pouring into others because that's the way that faith happens. It goes from one generation to the next. And now I pour into my children, they're pouring into their children, my grandchildren, and it goes on and on and on. And so, and of course, I had several Sunday school teachers, pastors, seminary professors, and colleagues that helped shape my faith. And just, so when I look at how we're formed, and I'm not just talking about living people. I'm talking about writers and authors who took the time to pen their theology and to pen their thoughts about the church, and that I've read. Wesley, for example, is one of them that has helped shape my understanding of the church then, now, and for tomorrow.
Amen. That's that tradition, that great cloud of witnesses that sends around us. We can all remember that person in our life, in our journey. Miss Williams was one of my Sunday school teachers at Central UMC in Waco back many moons ago. And I then had her for business statistics at Baylor many
Wow.
moons later. Yeah. And so it was a fantastic little full circle moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope our listeners today are able to remember those who have formed them, who've helped them catch the faith that they might share it with others.
And here's the thing, that sometimes Sunday school teachers or Bible school teachers, they don't really see the end result.
Yeah.
And they think, they go home and they might say, nobody paid attention today.
Right.
But it doesn't take much.
It was 8:30 in the morning. The children were very tired.
Doesn't take much for the gospel seed to be planted and then to grow later on in life. And so we have to be faithful, even when we don't see the fruit of our work.
Absolutely. Well, this weekend, as we're recording this, is winter camp at Glen Lake Camp.
Right.
And we're sending a group of students from our church, and our deep abiding prayer is that they might have one of those seed planting experiences of the love and grace of Jesus Christ in the midst of the work of the annual conference, in the midst of the work of the camp, and in the midst of a weekend away from their normal rhythms and routines, that God might be present. So good, so good. As you shared, I couldn't help but think of just how much faith is not just taught, it's caught.
It's caught, yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And we find ourselves in one of these moments in which, frankly, as a denomination, as United States Christianity, we may have been caught in our head for too long, and we may be being invited into a lived space, right, where we've engaged in a lot of theological arguments rather than living the faith. You've named this as an opportunity for us, as an inflection point in the life of our church, right? We're at a place where tomorrow will be different, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? And in that conversation, you've helped us begin to dream of a church of 2050. Right? When you think of the church of 2050, right, what do you think that looks like? And what's your process for coming to a vision of what that might be?
Well, first of all, it's not something that is predicated on just my imagination. I mean, we have people, right, researchers, that talk about what the Gen Z generation is going to be, and what the Alpha generations are going to look like, and what some of their ways of living and understanding, and what some of the issues that they'll be facing will be. We have people that are already futurists, and they're looking at the future and already predicting because of the signaling that's happening and the trends that are going on.
Right. We
already have some knowledge. That was the point of my Episcopal address at the Jurisdictional Conference. It's not. Let's not pretend that we don't know. We already have people that are already telling us what the future is going to look like. The question for us is, if we know that's going to be happening, what are the steps we need to take today to converge at that point with an expression of our faith that is meaningful and relevant, and that communicates the gospel in ways that are inviting to a people that for increasingly are becoming spiritual but not religious, right?
Yeah.
And what does the faith mean to them, and how do they then take the Christian faith and apply it to their lives through their vocations or through the different places where they find themselves within our community and within our world, and become advocates for justice, for peace, for ethics that are helpful and wholesome for all people. And so when I start thinking about that church and what that will look like, I have to leave myself the space to imagine a church that may look very different than the way that it does now. And when I'm talking about church, I think most of when we think about church, we think about buildings. Right. Let's go to church. So let's go to a location, space. Right? But the people are the church, and so the forms with which we do church, right, which are buildings. These are the containers where the faith is propagated, right, as disseminated in a building. We know that that's rapidly changing. So what are the forms? The function of faith will not change. It must continue.
Yeah.
But the forms with which it is conveyed must constantly be reevaluated, so that it becomes relevant to the people that will receive it.
Yeah.
And so.
As you have this conversation, I'm in a TMF group, Courageous Leadership Institute, and they took us to Seattle over the summer. Fantastic place to be in July. Not Texas. Seattle's great. It's amazing. But part of that was so that we might begin to cultivate that future orientation, because that is a community and a space that both just because of the nature of technology and things is a future-focused, future-oriented space. And in a kind of post-Christendom culture, they have moved farther along that journey than we have still in the buckle of the Bible Belt here in Texas. But as we were there, one of the conversations we had was with a church leader who said he had a 300-year vision for his church. And my first gut reaction was, what an act of hubris, right? I can have an ego, and I'm sure we all can have an ego, but how on earth do you get there? But the way they had got it down to was they looked for the 2,000 years of the Christian church and looked at what are those foundational practices that help form and shape the heart of the church. Not the expression of the church, but the heart of the church. That then we believe that those practices and expression and that heart will be there 300 years from now, even if the expression is radically different. And I think so often that invitation can cause a little anxiety. Because the expression of the church is what it is because we like it that way, and because it's been meaningful to us that way, and because it's been formative for our souls and for our spirits, right? And yet, clarity is knowing where you're going, but not being attached to how you get there.
Exactly.
Where have you in your own personal journey found yourself attached to a form or an expression that you later learned that that's good for me, but that's not great for everybody? Or that may not be the only way for somebody to experience the work of Christ in the midst of what is to come?
For me, the faith has been a journey. All of us are born into family systems, into communities, into cultures that shape our outlook and our worldview. And we're not careful, we can universalize that and look at everybody through that lens, and then judge whether they're friend or foe, with us or against us. And we recognize when we step outside of the boundaries, the cultural, racial, ethnic, theological boundaries that have formed and shaped us, when we step into other contexts where we intersect with other people that are different, then we have a choice. We either seclude ourselves again and isolate ourselves and go back into our enclave, or we become open to what the others have to say and what we can learn from them. And so I find that in my journey, I have my own personal convictions and beliefs, but at the same time, I find them being transformed, right, as I experience the world. One of the things that one of the questions that I often have when I go like to an airport, for example, and I'm sitting at a major airport waiting for the flight to go out, and I see people from all walks of life, moving through the hallways and sitting next to me, and I ask myself, wow, God, you love all these people. And I come to recognize the poverty of my own love and the limits of the people that I love, right? Because they're normally family, friends, associates, neighbors, things like that. But the love of God is so expansive. And so when I think about the love of God and the mercy of God and the goodness of God and the faithfulness of God, it's much beyond myself. So it's that knowledge that stretches me towards the other, and sometimes out of myself. And for the sake of the other. When Paul says, I become all things to all people that I may win them to Christ, he was functioning outside of the realm of his formation.
That's not his default lane that he likes to be in.
No, like Peter, right? Like when we read Acts chapter 10, and the subtitles in the Bible always say the conversion of Cornelius. It wasn't about the conversion of Cornelius. It was about the conversion of Peter. Peter had to let go of his hang-ups that he had towards the Gentiles so he could get to where God was leading him.
Yeah.
And so had Peter not been liberated from his biases and from his upbringing and from all of his prejudices, the world would have been very different. And so I think discipleship is a push beyond ourselves. And if you look at the Great Commandment, first Jerusalem, that which we know,
right,
then Judea, then Samaria, then the ends of the world. But once you start crossing those things, you're crossing all kinds of boundaries.
Right.
Where you might not be the majority, where your viewpoint might be in the minority, and yet you have to engage and have a conversation with people who have a very different understanding of how the world works, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the challenge of our faith, but that's also the richness and the beauty and the growth in our understanding of God's love and even our own discipleship.
As you speak, I'm reminded of Paul at Mars Hill.
Yeah.
In Acts, right?
Yeah.
You have seen these other guys. You know, he
Your
frames
poets.
Right. Your poets. He frames the understanding of who God is, as we understand God, within a lens that they can see and understand.
But he acknowledges their culture, their upbringing, their authorities, their poets, their philosophers. He knows them. Because he has studied them, and yet he can bring them to a higher understanding of Christ, despite all that. And so, but had he approached them with the Torah says,
right,
it would have been like, get out of here,
again,
right?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
You know, I tell the story 1,000 times. This is an odd thing, but I was in Las Vegas for a young person's church conference. Right. The Western jurisdiction put it on, so who knows? But as we were walking this, we had a blank time. We were walking the strip, just to say what is going on here, right? Yeah. And a street corner preacher with his loud bullhorn stood up on top of a box and was screaming us all down, right? Yeah. And his default position was, "You are a terrible, no good, very bad, sorry sucker," right? And as a preacher, as a person who wants people to come to know Christ fully and completely and have their lives transformed by him, I wanted him to shut up. Right? Because his spirit wasn't what you described, right? He didn't honor where the community was coming from, while also inviting them to something deeper and bigger and grander. Yeah. In my office sits a picture of a cartoon drawing of Jesus and a bunch of people. And the people have giant pencils in their hand, and they're drawing boxes around themselves. And Jesus is standing in the middle of one of those boxes, but his pencil is flipped upside down, and he is erasing the lines that connect us, or that prevent us from being connected.
When I had my business, I think we all go through these phases, right? Where we found the truth, and by golly, you're going to believe our truth, whether you like it or not. And I had a person that I was trying to bring to faith, and he was a Vietnam veteran, wonderful man. And we would have conversations when I was in my jewelry business, and he would come by to sell me advertisements for the town newspaper.
Okay.
And so we had all of these conversations about God and everything else like that. And one day he turned to me and he said, "You know what?" He said, "Everything you might say about God is true. I just can't receive it."
Okay.
I said, "Why? Why not? I mean, that's evident." I said, "Because there's no love in it. The way that you talk about God, there's no love of God, and why would God want me?" And that moment stopped me in my tracks, because I was a young lion, and I wanted, to collect all the souls and bring them to Jesus, and instead of winning them over, I repelled them, and that's always been, my concern, right? That we become stumbling blocks to people that have questions and that want to know more about the faith.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you next, what wisdom do you hope we can hand to the next generation? But I think you've just dropped one of those nuggets of wisdom that we hope we can hand to the next generation, right? How can we, in a culture and so focused on being right, choose often to be loving even when we're correct? Right?
Yeah.
The idol meat controversy in 1 Corinthians 8.
Right.
Right? Where Paul says, look, we know it's just a holy barbecue and there's really nothing holy to it. It's just good food.
Right.
But you might cause someone else to stumble.
Right.
So don't go.
Right.
Right. What other pieces of wisdom might you hope to be able to hand to those of us who are stepping into leadership into the church now, or who've been in leadership for 10, 15 years, who are helping to shape and form the church that will raise and then be handed to your grandson?
Mm-hmm. I think that we live in a world where a lot of people want certainty. And we can be certain about things. We know that God has promised, Christ has promised to be with us until the end of the age.
Amen. Yes.
That's a certainty. We know that God's love is never ceasing, and God's mercies are new every morning. We know these things. But there's other, and people want very simple answers to complex situations, right? That we do not yet have all the information or light about.
Yeah.
And so I always think I'm going to hold this view provisionally until I get further light about it. But for today, this is where I am.
Yeah.
And I'm not closing the door on any more understanding or growth, because I think a sense of curiosity is important, and also a sense that what somebody else has to say or share is just as valuable, and I cannot dismiss it because hierarchically we might be in different levels of the hierarchy or the spectrum. And so it's this openness to learn from the other, which requires a posture of humility.
Yeah.
And to know that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And the more I know about something, the more I need to know.
Right.
And so, and that's the way that I try to lead. Yeah. With humility, trying to sense and discern where we need to go, but at the same time listening to where the Spirit is calling us to go, and then join with that. Yeah. Even if it's sometimes in a different pathway than I would have chosen to go. Yeah. So it's this ability to bend and to move in a world that is rapidly changing, with some solid convictions and principles that are guiding us, and some values, but at the same time open to where the Spirit is leading.
A generous and humble and curious orthodoxy, maybe.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I think we'd all do well to embrace that as we try to move forward together.
And here's the thing. Recognizing the gifts and graces of people around, and helping others to flourish to the best that they can, because as the more that others flourish, the more we all flourish. Yeah. So how can I inspire and encourage others to be their best selves, and to lead out of their giftedness and out of their goodness, for the sake, not just for themselves, but also for the sake of those that Christ has entrusted to them. Yeah. Whether it be their family, their businesses, their communities, their school districts, their hospitals or universities or whatever, or even the churches that pastors pastor.
So that, as Jesus says in the Lord's Prayer, right? Your kingdom come, your will be done, may earth be more like heaven. Like, I think if we're all living more completely into who God has invited us to be and is creating us to be, earth becomes a little more like heaven in all of those places and spaces. We are coming near to the close of our time, and so I got one final question for you.
Sure.
As a lifelong follower of Jesus, as somebody who's been on a journey and morphed and changed and kind of held this curious and humble spirit to your walking with Christ, as folks seek to follow Jesus into that church of 2050, what kind of personal, foundational, spiritual practices help guide and shape your spirit, and you think might form a foundation for a church whose expression may be different in the future, but also will have a generous heart and that same spirit? What kinds of personal faith practices do you think will help form and shape God's people as we move toward that direction?
And I think the word is practice. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
We practice because we have not yet perfected. But everything's a practice in our relationships, in our in our ways that we encounter Christ through scriptures, through reflection, through meditation, in the ways that we pray. Prayer opens us up. Scripture opens us up to new possibilities that God is doing. From the practice sense, is we participate in the corporate practices of worship and Christian fellowship and the partaking of the sacraments and things like that. But also in our daily practices, we have to be continuous learners. Learn about others, learn about the world around us, learn about the world that's coming, and lift that up in prayer and say, okay, God, what part do I play in all of this, right? Oh. And then find our place and lead from there in whatever capacity we can, trusting that as we're doing our work, there's many, many others. One of the things that God told Elijah was like, you think you're the only one that's having a hard time? There's 7,000 others, right, that are serving me. Yeah. So sometimes we might feel that we are isolated, it's only us against the planet. That's not true. Yeah. We have to have faith that the same Spirit that's at work in us is at work in many, many other people. And how do we unite ourselves with that, connect ourselves to that, and trust that God is up to something even though we don't understand it or see it, but that we're all working and moving towards that reign of that beautiful reign that Christ talked about that is present and still yet to come, right? Yeah. So, amen. And that vision of our work here is a tiny fraction of God's magnificent enterprise. Yeah. And to be able to be at peace with that, while at the same time not dismissing it because it is so small, right? But doing it with all of our heart, all of our mind, all of our strength, right? Yeah. And all of our will.
The world is not ours to change on our own, but we can change our own corner of it.
Exactly.
And trust that that's enough.
Exactly.
Bishop, thank you so much for your time today. I know you've got a docket that's about as full as can be, and so thank you for joining us today on Pod Strangely Warmed. I hope and pray that God is with you and journeys with you and that the Spirit is palpable through whatever the rest of your day carries. And know that on behalf of the Central Texas Conference, we are so incredibly thankful for you and for your leadership. And we're thankful that we get to delight in Maya's presence as well. She is such an incredible, incredible joy.
Thank you. I will let her know that, and she's super excited to be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So, thank you, Daniel, for this.
Amen. And go Cowboys?
Next year.
Next year.
The Cowboys.
the Cowboys anthem. Next year. There's always next year.
Take care.
Thank you, Bishop. God bless you. Thank you for joining us today on Pod Strangely Warmed. I hope and pray you were encouraged by our amazing conversation with Bishop Ruben Saenz. As we continue in the weeks to come, we will have further conversations with ancestors in our faith, ancestors in our very midst here in the Central Texas Conference, folks who have shaped and formed the church we have, and who will help us dream as we shape and form the church that is to come. If today's conversation was good to your spirit or good to your soul, I ask, who might you want to share this with? Who might you want to gather together over coffee or over lunch to dive deeper into the nuggets of wisdom that Bishop Saenz left for us today? It truly will be an incredible series of conversations as we go forward. Until next time, I'm Daniel Hawkins, and thank you for joining us at Pod Strangely Warmed.